everyone, it's Nina. Thanks for joining me today for a new tutorial, and I'm really excited to be sharing some inspiration with you using some of the new watercolors from Altenew. I love watercoloring, and when I found out that Altenew was releasing a set of watercolors to coordinate with their line of inks, markers, and other fun products, I was so excited to be able to use them, and I've been using them for quite a long time now. And I'm finally able to share them with you because Altenew is now releasing them, and let me tell you, they are beautiful colors. So today's card features a gatefold design, and I did some watercoloring using those new colors, and I'll show you how I did all of that. But let's start by building the card base itself. So I have a 12-inch by 4¼ inch piece of white watercolor paper. This is Canson XL paper. And I'm going to score this at 4 inches on either side of this paper using my scoring board and the We Are Memory Keepers embossing stylus. I really love these styluses because they have different sized ball points that allow you to pick the one that works best for your paper. For watercolor paper, you're going to want to give yourself a nice crease so you don't have any cracking. I'm going to go ahead and fold my flaps of my card over so I have it ready to roll. But I'm going to start by stamping some flowers using the STARRY Flowers stamp set from Altenew. I prepped the surface of my paper before stamping with a powder tool, and then I'm stamping those flowers with embossing ink so I can use Brutus Monroe gilded embossing powder over top of that. The Brutus Monroe embossing powders are some of my most favorites because they are extra fine detail and capture the tiny little areas of these flowers and other images beautifully. Now the fun part about this design is that this gatefold card has die cut edges, and that's because I've cut out the edges of the flowers to create a really fun edge to my gatefold. So this steps up the design a lot. And then I'm going to bring in my die cutting plates. This technique works best because you're going to be doing on the edge die cutting. So I'm going to line up the edge of my cutting plate with only half of this flower die. I'm going to be cutting off the half of the flower that's going to be on the end of each gatefold flap. So once I've run this through, I'm going to snip off the excess that didn't get cut from the bottom of the card, and now you can see that we're left with that great, beautiful flower design cut out of our card base. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side of this card base, and I'm going to stamp those flowers. However, this time I'm going to stamp them twice. I'm using my Misty grid paper to help me get these aligned perfectly. I stamped the one flower already, and now I'm bringing in the second Starry Flowers bouquet, and I'm going to stamp that next to that same flower on that same left-hand panel. Then I'll realign my card base and the dies inside of my die cutting machine's panel and making sure that I only cut half of the die that's closest to the edge of this particular flap. I'll fussy cut that leftover remaining area out, but by doing the die cutting, that saves me a lot of fussy cutting, and it makes the card a lot more cleaner. So I'm going to go ahead and take my bone folder and give all of my creases a really nice press down so that way everything is nice and crisp. Now that we have our gatefold built, it's time to move on to watercoloring. I wanted to give you a look at these Altenew watercolors first. Now, bear in mind, my watercolor palette that holds the 36 set of Altenew watercolors, I decorated with a sheet of Altenew washi tape. So that's why it's got a beautiful flower pattern on it. I just put that tape down and put a little bit of a clear varnish over top of that just to keep things nice and secure. These watercolors are really beautiful. There are 36 colors and they all coordinate with all of the different inks and markers that the Altenew already has released. All of the color names are all the same as their inks, so you can easily find colors that are going to coordinate with the ink colors that you love most. These Altenew watercolors have a really beautiful consistency, they're really vibrant, and I have really enjoyed working with them. I have been using them for almost a year now, and I have loved them. I'm going to start by watercoloring in my flowers by putting down a base coat of watercolor. I'm not going to be doing super detailed watercoloring on this card. Because there's a lot of florals, it was going to take a long time to color all these in with a really nice detail. Second, I also loved creating the look of a loose and messy style of watercolor. So I'm using that messy look to my advantage. I'm also using dry brush techniques where I use very little water and just mostly pigment to create some nice texture like I am doing here in the background. The base coats of colors are going to give me a base to put some additional loose colors on top of. Now you'll notice I mixed my watercolors on the side here on the palette. That's allowing me to pick up other colors and mix things together as I create. This is also making sure that I don't use a very concentrated amount of color for these base layers of color, because we're going to be adding more vibrant on top of these lighter colors. So this is what the panel is supposed to look like by the time we're done all of our watercoloring. So I've done one side of the panel, I'm going to move on to the other side. This is where I'm going to go ahead and add that nice concentrated amount of watercolor and some nice loose details. What I do is I drop color down into the flower in the darkest areas towards the center, and I do a little bit of a dabbing motion as I move this around on the paper. I also then take a clean brush and just fade out some of the edges a little bit, but I don't fade them out completely because I want to be able to have a mix of hard and soft edges. This gives you a really nice loose watercolor effect, and it's really fun to be able to do this for something like these bouquets of flowers because it adds a lot of really nice texture. You'll also want to keep in mind that the more water you use, the more your colors will blend. So I do recommend using as little water as possible when doing this technique, because that's going to give you a lot more control in how your dry brush effects are going to look and also how your loose style is going to turn out. Unfortunately, I lost some of the footage throughout this video, so I didn't get to capture how I created the background. But basically what I did in the background was I added stippling and some dots of both teal and green watercolors, and that creates a really nice effect. If you want to see a technique on how I created a background like this green texture, I encourage you to watch the video that I'm adding right now into the top right hand corner of your screen. That's going to take you to a video that I created featuring some memory box dies, but I did the exact same technique in that video as I did to create this background behind these flowers. So now that all of my watercoloring is finished, I moved on to adding some additional embellishment. I used a white gel pen to add some dots on each of the flowers, but then I'm also bringing in some pretty pink posh gems and adding these into the centers of each of my flowers. I used a mix of pink, yellow, purple, and also some white. Now again, I did lose some footage on the creation of this card, so I didn't get to show you how I built my sentiment, but I cut this out using a new Hello die from Altenew, and I cut it from some gold mirror cardstock and white cardstock and stacked those together. There's a total of 3 layers of paper here, the gold cardstock being the top layer. There's also a supporting sentiment that I white heat embossed onto some pink cardstock, and I'm going to add this with a little bit of foam tape down towards the bottom of my hello sentiment. I'm making sure to only add adhesive to the one side of the panel because I do want to make sure that the sentiment hangs off the edge. And you don't want to have any adhesive on the other end that's going to stick to the other panel of this Gatefold card. On the inside of the card, I want to finish off the sentiment that I have going on the front. So I'm going to stamp this panel that I've die cut with the Starry Flowers stamp set. I'm stamping this in an ombre style, so I used both blush and rouge Altenew inks, and I'm just mixing them together as I stamp this over and over again with my Misty stamping tool, creating that really nice ombre effect. Here's a look at the card. It's all finished. On the front it says, "Hello, I'm always here for you," and we've got a lot of beautiful sparkle and bright colors. And when you open it up on the inside, the sentiment finishes off and says, "No matter what." This is a great card to give to somebody that needs a little bit of a pick-me-up or a smile to brighten their day. I hope that this video has inspired you to create some beautiful Gatefold card designs, and also has given you a look at how beautiful the watercolors from Altenew are. And they're such a great medium. I definitely encourage you to check them out because there's a great variety of colors in this palette. A lot of really beautiful colors, including yellows and purples, which I have a tendency to be a little bit picky on those 2 colors. So I was really happy with this entire palette, and I know you will be too. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you will stop by my blog to take part in the Blog Hop celebration that is happening right now for the Altenew Watercolor release. You can visit my blog by clicking the link on screen or down in the video description. And there's 2 videos on screen right now that you might enjoy as well. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back again very soon with more inspiration for you. And until next time, I hope you have a great day. Bye!